from Great Britain. All right, so we're talking today about the Townshend Acts or the Townshend Acts. It can be pronounced a couple of different ways. I want to tell you about these things, tell you about some of the colonial reactions, and really what was involved with it. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So the Townshend Acts were proposed by this guy named Charles Townshend, a.k.a. known as Champagne Charlie. And basically they gave him this nickname because he used to like to get drunk on champagne and give speeches to the British Parliament, which is also known as the British government. So old Champagne Charlie here had an idea, and yeah, he looks like a bit of a dandy there with his nice wig, and that's quite an outfit. So here we go with the Townshend Acts. Let's talk about reasons why they wanted to impose these new taxes on the colonies. Really, what it was is they wanted to put taxes on the colonists to pay for the British army that was occupying, or in the words of the British Parliament, protecting the colonies. And remember, they're there, oh yeah, we're going to protect you from the Native Americans and any other threats that there may be. And there was a lot. The army was huge in the colonies at this time. So that's what we're talking about. This is the reason why they had to pay for these soldiers that were in the colonies in some way, shape, or form. So he said, hey, why not have the colonists pay for it? So we want to know how they were going to go about collecting this money. So now let's take a look at what exactly the Townshend Acts were. Okay? So basically they taxed the colonists on items imported from Great Britain. So anything that was manufactured in Great Britain that was being sold in the colonies, they were going to tax that stuff. So we're talking about things like tea. Tea was like the Coca-Cola of the day. Everybody was drinking tea. It was the thing to do. So we're talking about tea being imported from Great Britain. Okay, other things would be glass. People have windows in their houses, and guess what? Those require glass. So things that were the glass that was manufactured in Great Britain was being taxed. Other things like paint. If you want to paint your house, if you want to paint anything, if it was manufactured in Great Britain and being sold in the colonies, they were going to put taxes on it. There were other things too. I mean, we're talking paper, household items, stuff like that. But these were just some examples of items that would be taxed because they were being imported or sent from Great Britain over to the American colonies. So think about that. What was being taxed? It's these type of items. Okay? So now we're going to take a look at what comes next, and we're going to take a look at the colonists' reaction to these new taxes. So what do the colonists think about this? And you probably, what would you think about this? Something coming in from another country, and all of a sudden you got to pay more for it. These kinds of things happen, but how did the colonists react to these new taxes? Basically, they were like, okay, anything made in Great Britain, we are going to boycott or stop buying anything that's imported from Great Britain. So they had to go in and they really didn't have labels back then, but that's what you would do today, is look at the labels on it and say, oh, this says made in Great Britain, we're not going to buy it. Okay? So if they're not buying the goods from Great Britain, it's going to hurt the businesses selling that stuff in Great Britain because nobody's paying for it. Okay? So really the colonists were like, yeah, we're not going to buy anything that's made in Great Britain and then sold in the colonies. And one of the main players in this were the women that lived in the colonies. These ladies were basically the ones that organized the boycotts around the colonies. They did a lot of the shopping, and they were the ones doing a lot of the buying and things at the stores around the colonies. And so the women really played a huge role in this by organizing and saying, yeah, don't buy anything from Great Britain. They would do things like, instead of buying British tea, they would make tea out of pine needles. Okay? They would help each other out. They would use local items. They would barter with each other and say, oh yeah, our apple tree had a great harvest this year. Do you have some carrots that we can trade? So they really created this network of organizing the boycotts and finding ways around buying British items. So women really played a good role in this. Now, one of the things that I want you to remember is because of the boycott, what was the British government going to do? It was beginning to hurt British business, okay? So basically, after all was said and done, they repealed the Townshend Acts. Now, repealed is just a fancy way of saying they stopped it, okay? So they basically went back and said, yeah, this isn't working. We're going to go ahead and stop this tax on British goods. So ultimately, it was an effective boycott. Now, one thing I want you to think about, because we're going to be talking about this in the near future, is the one thing that they kept a tax on was tea. Okay, it was very popular, and we're going to talk about what becomes known as the Tea Act here in the next upcoming sections of Chapter 5. So, if you've got any questions about this, go back, take a look at what we've got here with the Townshend Acts, and you're going to have an opportunity to find some information in the text and go from there. So have a great day.